have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live. Thanks for joining us today. Visit online at wallbuilders.com and wallbuilderslive.com. We're looking at things from both a biblical and historical point of view. Today's program, David, really definitely coincides with the Bible and history and politics, especially the role of the Bible. You've got actually presentations on the role of the Bible in the founding of our nation, but really any nation.
Well, the Bible is key to all nations if they're going to work right. No nation has to use the Bible, but it's not going to work well. And so it's very difficult to go, particularly in the last 300-400 years, and find any nation that has rejected the Bible that has survived as a leading nation. Those that embrace it, they will become very strong nations or have become strong nations when they embrace it fully. So, and by the way, this fact that I'm stating is not something I've just come up with. This has been stated by presidents for a long time. I mean, I'm just looking here to quote from Teddy Roosevelt. He says this. He says, "The teachings of the Bible are so interwoven and so entwined with our civic and our social life that it would be impossible for us to figure what life would be if these teachings were removed." You take the teachings of the Bible out of our civic and social life, you wouldn't recognize America. Now, people don't know that, but it's pretty easy to point to 5 Bible verses as being the basis of the free market system, the 7 forms of government in the Bible, and the Bible prefers the Republican form of government, so we choose that. And the founders talked about the Bible preference for Republican forms of government. I mean, you take away our economy, our education system. By the way, the first public school law done in America that helped shape public school education was built on the Bible, and it was called the Old Deluder Satan Act. It said Satan wants to keep us out of the Bible, but we're not going to do that with our education. So you take away what the Bible built in America, you wouldn't recognize us. Then you take somebody like Franklin Roosevelt. He said, "We cannot read the history of our rise and development as a nation without reckoning with the place the Bible has occupied in shaping the advances of the Republic." He said there's no way you can read our history and see what caused us to rise and be great without reckoning with what the Bible did. And then you go to somebody like Zachary Taylor. He said the Bible is the best of books. I wish it were in the hands of everyone. He said the Bible is indispensable to the safety and permanence of our institutions. There's another president. So, I mean, it's very easy to point to presidents and how that when we used to actually study history rather than study what a lot of academics today have turned into anti-history, it was real easy to see the influence of the Bible. Now, I have long held and will continue to hold, because the Bible teaches that God is no respecter of persons. It's also no respecter of nations. Any person that will take his principles and apply them, he will bless. Any nation that will take his principles and apply them, he will bless. So we have seen a number of nations in the last 30 years say, hey, we want the Bible. As a matter of fact, back just a few months ago, I was asked to go to the Ukraine because their leader said, you know, we're doing a new constitution in Ukraine. We really like what America used to be. We're Christians here in the Ukraine. We don't like what you guys are now. Would you come show us how to do what you guys did back then? And so you have the Ukraine, you have the Soviet bloc that has said, hey, we want to be biblical nations. We want to do it the way the Bible says. And, you know, time will tell whether they actually get the Bible ingested deep enough in their culture to actually make the difference. But if they can, it will make a difference. Now, the trick is, can they get the Bible into their culture? And if so, how do you do that? Well, media's got to help you with that. Schools have got to help you with that. The courts and the government have to help you with that. In America, I've got examples of cases where that, for example, we had the death sentence of a man overturned because a Bible verse was quoted during the trial. Just for quoting a Bible verse, we're going to overturn the conviction of a man who clubbed to death a 70-year-old woman with an axe handle because somebody mentioned it. Doesn't change the evidence, doesn't change the fact he did it, but you mentioned a Bible verse, we got to do this again. So that's the kind of hostility that we've had in recent years in America. if other nations do what we used to do and embrace the Bible and acknowledge it throughout, they can be very different nations, which kind of leads up to our story today. I was in an airport recently coming back from speaking, and a guy came up and introduced himself to me and said, "Hey, you Barton?" "Yeah, I'm Barton." He said, "I was at a college where you spoke some years ago, and you need to know what I'm doing now." He said, "I'm now helping run a Bible society, and all we're doing is working in the former Soviet bloc, the nations that used to be part of the Soviet Union, and they're begging for Bibles like crazy. And they're saying, we want to be Bible nations. We want to do what works. We want the Bible in our schools. We want it in our government, in our culture." And I thought, I've been to Ukraine, and I've seen that that's going on in Ukraine, but I didn't know it was going in all these other Soviet bloc nations. And most people don't have a clue that this is going on. I thought, that'd be a really fun thing to kind of talk about, is how that in these other nations that are trying to become stable, they're turning to the Bible. And in America, we're going just the opposite direction. So I thought it'd be fun to have this guy on. And his name, he's with this Eastern European Mission, but Dirk Smith. And Dirk Smith is the guy who is now the vice president. And he was telling me just how many millions of copies of Bibles they have put out. And it's unbelievable what they're doing now in the former Soviet Union.
Well, it's ironic as we're, having to fight so hard to get the Bible back into the classroom here in America. They're embracing it in the former Soviet Union. It's going to be great to talk to him. Dirk Smith with us when we return. Stay with us on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. At the time of the American Revolution, numerous other nations also had revolutions, yet 200 years later, America is the only of those nations still under its original form of government. Is this just good luck? Not according to founding father Benjamin Rush. He declared, "I do not believe that the Constitution was the offspring of inspiration, but I am as perfectly satisfied that it is as much the work of a divine providence as any of the miracles recorded in the Old and New Testament." George Washington agreed. In fact, he declared, "I should be pained to believe that the United States have forgotten that divine interposition which was so often manifested during our revolution, or that they fail to consider the omnipotence of that God who is alone able to protect them. Our founders acknowledged that our national success had come from God."
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Our guest today is Dirk Smith. He's the Vice President of Eastern European Mission. Dirk, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Rick.
Hey, it's exciting to see the Bible getting back into the classroom. It's just interesting that it's not American classrooms. We're getting the Bible into classrooms. Am I really reading this right? In the Ukraine and Russia?
That's exactly right. It's been going on, Rick, since 1998 was really the first request that came to EEM, to Eastern European Mission, and that was in Russia in the Altai region. And it was about 2,500 schools that year, and that has just grown. In 2008 was the first time we got a formal request from the nation of Ukraine, and that was ironically in the region of Donetsk, which is now under separatist control, but that was 1,187 schools. So to date, there are more than 3 million students that have access to the Bible in their classroom, and it's not English, it's in their language. It's in Russian and Ukrainian. They teach the Bible as curriculum, and we know that is continuing in the nation of Ukraine. They actually teach a course called Christian Ethics in the schools in the nation of Ukraine.
Wow. How did this get started? What do you think prompted this, and did they used to do this, or is this entirely new, started in 1998?
Well, the obvious answer to that question is God did it.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing we could do, and to make this happen. And if we tried, we'd mess it up somehow. But yeah, these are nations that are brilliant people and fantastic countries, and they used to be Christian nations years and years and years ago. So they know the pain and what happens to a nation when the Bible is taken away from them. They saw the moral decay, and there are officials, not only in the government, but also in higher education, that are coming together and working together in unity to try and bring the Bible back. One of the lead gentlemen on that is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Zhukovsky, and he made the quote when he was with us recently and just said, Dirk, if we could put the Bible back in the hands of our children, we believe that we would change the face of the nation of Ukraine in one generation. Well, of course, Rick, we kind of know that because look at our country. 1963 is when that wonderful court case took place that made it illegal to read the Bible in our public schools, and how are we doing?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we know that these seeds, if planted, bear great fruit, and if not, if taken away, can absolutely destroy a nation. I mean, we've changed so quickly in America as a result of that and taken the Bible out of the classroom. So it's just interesting to me, exciting to me that these nations would allow for these seeds to be planted in that classroom. We know the type of fruit that will come as a result of that. And granted, it's, 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 years before we see that fruit bear out on a national scale. But that's the way we have to think. We have to think generationally. That's how our founding fathers thought. That's what it's going to take to really prepare us for the future. So this is very, very exciting. And I think our listeners have got to be asking, how can I help? What can I do to be a part of this? You guys have something you call $1 Million Sunday that's going to happen a little bit later this year. I guess you kind of plan for it all year long. It's your one big giving day of the year. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, exactly. We do $1 Million Sunday, and this year it'll be September 27th. It's always the last Sunday in September, and individuals and churches all over the country will join together and contribute. And this year, for the first time, we'll be putting Bibles in the nation of Ukraine. Not for the first time in Ukraine, but the first time in Croatia and also in Romania. So we're actually doing 3 countries this year. So it'll be Ukraine, Romania, and Croatia. So they can go to our website, milliondollarsunday.org, and learn all about that. We would love for people to participate in that, call in, ask how their church can get involved, how they individually can get involved. $1 Million Sunday, September 27th this year, and we would love the listening audience to participate or call into us, write into us, ask how they can be a part of this.
More than 3 million students, 14,000 public schools, 27 universities, 570 public libraries, 15 regions, 2 countries. You guys are reaching out, and now you're going to more countries. That means more students. That means more schools. It obviously means more people getting the right values and therefore eventually leading that country with those right values. These are exactly the right seeds we need to be planting, and I'm just glad to see it happening around the world. I wish we could do more of it here in America. We are slowly but surely. There's some great organizations doing that as well here in the U.S., but great to see what you guys are doing there. Got to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Dirk Smith, our guest from Eastern European Mission. The website to find out more, milliondollarsunday.org, milliondollarsunday.org, and we'll have a link today at wallbuilderslive.com. Stay with us here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Revisionists today often assert that our founding fathers were atheists or agnostics or deists. This charge is not new. In fact, Patrick Henry was even called a deist in his lifetime. Clearly, no one could question his patriotism, but Henry was hurt that they would question his Christianity. Against the charge that he was a deist, Patrick Henry thundered, "Deism, with me, is but another name for vice and depravity. I hear it is said by the deists that I am one of their number, and indeed, that some good people think I am no Christian. This thought gives me much more pain than being called a traitor. Being a Christian is a character which I prize far above all this world has or can boast." Patrick Henry was quick to refute the charge of deism and to declare his open belief as a Christian.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Our guest today, Dirk Smith. The organization is called Eastern European Mission, and they are getting the Bible into classrooms in Russia, in the Ukraine. You said, Dirk, you're going to be adding Romania. What was the other one you're adding? The Croatia?
Croatia.
All right. So what is what's your goal for next year in terms of the number of students you're hoping to reach?
Well, it's very, very fluid. And we're waiting right now to get the final requests in from the nation of Ukraine. Right now it looks like we have 2 regions. We typically do these regions at a time. So last year we did regions 6, 7, and 8 in their total number of regions, or oblasts as they would call them. It looks like we'll at least have 2 regions this year, but there may be 4. So with the 2 regions, Rick, it looks like our financial goal for this $1 Million Sunday will be right about $2.4 million.
And you reach, I mean, it takes, roughly you can sponsor a kid for $5. You can sponsor a Bible for a kid. You can have, I guess you could sponsor a whole school if you wanted.
Yeah, $1,000 gets one school all the Bibles they need for every child to have access to a Bible in their language. Or if people want to do per student and sponsor a child, it's $5, exactly as you said. So, yeah, there's any number of ways to get involved financially.
All right, the website, $1,000,000Sunday.org. What do you think, Dirk, it does take? I mean, I've been saying generationally, years. I mean, what kind of results do you expect to see from this?
As you alluded to, we firmly believe what the prophet Isaiah said in Isaiah 55. And that is, if we put God's word out there, it's not going to come back void.
Yeah.
It's going to do what he intends for it to do. And we also look at the words of Jesus in the parable, what we call the parable of the sower. And the words there, Jesus promises us that there are going to be 3 soils that aren't good. And there's going to be one that's good. And I think he tells that parable so that we don't start patting ourselves on the back and recognize that it's not about us. What we can't do is go out there and try and identify soil. We just have to throw the seed and trust that the Spirit of God is going to move through these children, through their parents, who then begin reading these Bible stories to their kids. And then, of course, what happens is our address is in the front of every Bible, our European address, and these parents write in and ask for Bibles. And so we're seeing a distribution. Last year, our distribution of Bibles increased 23% in 1 year. It increased 35% in the nation of Russia alone. So the fields are white with harvest. We just have to get the seed out there and trust God and not micromanage God and let God do what God does best.
That's good, man. That's that John Quincy Adams attitude of duty is ours, results are God's, and you guys are clearly doing your duty and getting these Bibles out there, planting these seeds in places that, we wouldn't have even thought 25, 30 years ago. Well, we try, people would have to smuggle them in and sneak them in, and you guys have an open door now that 25, 30 years ago people would have not even imagined was possible.
Well, and that's exactly the way this ministry started, Rick. This ministry started in 1961, and it started as a smuggling operation.
No kidding.
Yeah, and we smuggled Bibles across the Iron Curtain by the hundreds and thousands. We actually have a little Bible that we still have some of the originals that were called a Marlboro Bible because it was the exact size of a pack of cigarettes. Now, that's not real politically correct today, but it worked back then.
Right.
Because, they could roll them up in their sleeve, they could put them in their jacket, and when a guard would frisk them, they just thought it was a pack of cigarettes and they'd let them go on. So now here we are 54 years later, and we're not smuggling them in, we're driving them in tractor truckloads.
Wow. That's a praise report right there. That's pretty amazing. It's great to share the good news. Our listeners are a very active audience, really a great opportunity to make a difference. For more information, you can go to $1,000,000Sunday.org. Check out the website there and plan on that opportunity in September. You said it's September 27th?
September 27th, yes. And if they want to learn more just about EEM, our other main website is obviously just EEM.org. But the specific $1 Million Sunday website is $1,000,000Sunday.org. But would love to interact with as many of your listening audience. And, just appreciate WallBuilders and all you guys are doing in this country to remind us of the foundation that we were built on and to get us all back to that. And if I hear it one time, I hear it a million a million times when I'm out making presentations about our work. People come up and say, boy, I wish we could do that in our country. And the answer to that is we can. We just have to be willing to risk. And who of us are going to be willing to risk enough to step out there and say, hey, this is the way we were founded. Let's stick to this.
Yeah. Amen. All right. EEM.org is the other website. Both of the links available today at wallbuilderslive.com. Click on those links to find out more. Dirk, thanks for coming on, bro. Appreciate you being here.
Hey, thank you, Rick. Appreciate the time.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be back in a moment with David Barton. Have you noticed the vacuum of leadership in America? We're looking around for leaders of principle to step up, and too often, no one is there. God is raising up a generation of young leaders with a passion for impacting the world around them. They're crying out for the mentorship and leadership training they need. Patriot Academy was created to meet that need. Patriot Academy graduates now serve in state capitals around America, in the halls of Congress, in business, in the film industry, in the pulpit, and every area of the culture. They're leading effectively and impacting the world around them. Patriot Academy is now expanding across the nation, and now's your chance to experience this life-changing week that trains champions to change the world. Visit patriotacademy.com for dates and locations. Our core program is still for young leaders 16 to 25 years old, but we also now have a citizen track for adults. So visit the website today to learn more. Help us fill the void of leadership in America. Join us in training champions to change the world at patriotacademy.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks to Dirk Smith and, man, all the folks that are helping them do what they're doing in these former Soviet Union countries. David, back here with David Barton. Now, David, you got to be encouraged by this, and maybe now we can learn from some of these nations.
Yeah, isn't that an ironic thing? I mean, government and higher education both want the Bible back in. That ain't America, but that was America when we were doing so well in so many areas. And I was just thinking as he's going through the nations there, let me see if I can get some foreign policy straight here. All right, Ukraine wants the Bible. They want Christianity. They want pastors to be involved in government. So the State Department says, we're not going to help you guys. You guys take on the Russians. I know we promised to help you all, but we're not going to help your nation. South Sudan splits from Sudan, basically ends the civil war. South Sudan, Christian, wants the Bible, and the Obama administration refuses to do anything with South Sudan. Israel, the Green family who owns Hobby Lobby, they're putting together a Bible curriculum. And that Bible curriculum is based on the archaeological evidence of the Bible, the history of the Bible, etc. They have this massive Bible museum that will open in Washington, D.C. in 2017. These guys have 40,000 Bible artifacts, from Dead Sea Scrolls, cuneiforms, all the way through. They have the largest collection of Torahs in the world, larger than any Jewish library. And interestingly, Israel said, well, we want that Bible curriculum in our public schools, but this must be the American version because you've left out too much God and too much Bible. We want more God and Bible in our version. So there's Israel asking for, and of course, the Obama administration, we're not going to help them. But let it be Syria or Libya or Egypt or somewhere else that doesn't want the Bible, and my gosh, we will fall over ourselves to help these guys. And it's just so strange that our leadership is running away from what has been historically there. And I don't know, maybe someday some of these kids out of the Ukraine and some of these kids out of other places will become missionaries to America, because we need some Christians here. We need some people who can tell us how to run our government, our education, our economics, and how we can become successful. And that's what made us successful. And who knows, maybe someday we'll get missionaries from those countries coming back to help us get ourselves together again.
Well, didn't we? In fact, I remember some programs we did a few years ago on evangelical Christians, missionaries coming from
Nigeria.
Yeah, Nigeria was what I was thinking of.
And South Korea. South Korea, Nigeria. They're sending missionaries to America like crazy. And, of course, if I looked at the stats on America, we're number one in the world in violent crime, and promiscuity and sexuality, and out-of-wedlock births, and lack of marriage. We need some missionaries here. We need somebody who can point us to the Bible. And you're right. That was started going years ago just based on the stats. that South Korea and Nigeria were sending Christian missionaries to America to help get people in America back to the gospel, which, and it looks like, well, we've moved further away from that than where we were even a few years ago when we talked about it. So maybe some of these kids will. And by the way, it was kind of a deja vu thing, but Dirk was saying that they started as a smuggling operation. That's really where I got started with the Soviet bloc back when the Iron Curtain was up. I spoke Russian. I was fluent in Russian, and when the Russian gymnastic team came to America in 1976, I got to be translator for them and do translate. Just the accounts of what happened when we went to stores was a blast. But
wait, stop. Wait. You speak Russian?
I don't now, but I was at one time fluent in Russian, and again translated for the Russian gymnastics team when they came to America. But at the same time, we were working our tails off to smuggle Bibles into the Soviet Union, and had several trips that went there smuggling Bibles in. So
I wish our show was on television so people could see my shocked face right now. You interpreted. I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, that's back in the day, bro.
Wow, that's amazing. So this show was pretty cool for you then.
Oh yeah, it was, because it's a reminiscent of all that smuggling time and how dangerous it was, and the Soviet bloc and the guards at the borders and all the stuff that went on there. Pretty amazing.
If I knew how to sign off in Russian right now, I would do it, but I don't. So thanks for listening today, folks. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we burn, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
The only thing we have to fear is
In war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live. Thanks for joining us today. Visit online at wallbuilders.com and wallbuilderslive.com. We're looking at things from both a biblical and historical point of view. Today's program, David, really definitely coincides with the Bible and history and politics, especially the role of the Bible. You've got actually presentations on the role of the Bible in the founding of our nation, but really any nation.
Well, the Bible is key to all nations if they're going to work right. No nation has to use the Bible, but it's not going to work well. And so it's very difficult to go, particularly in the last 300-400 years, and find any nation that has rejected the Bible that has survived as advanced as the Republic. He said there's no way you can read our history and see what caused us to rise and be great without reckoning with what the Bible did. And then you go to somebody like Zachary Taylor. He said the Bible is the best of books. I wish it were in the hands of everyone. He said the Bible is indispensable to the safety and permanence of our institutions. There's another president. So, I mean, it's very easy to point to presidents and how that when we used to actually study history rather than study what a lot of academics today have turned into anti-history, it was real easy to see the influence of the Bible. Now, I have long held and will continue to hold, because the Bible bases the free market system, the 7 forms of government in the Bible, and the Bible prefers the Republican form of government, so we choose that, and the founders talked about the Bible preference for Republican forms of government. I mean, you take away our economy, our education system. By the way, the first public school law done in America that helped shape public school education was built on the Bible, and it was called the Old Deluder Satan Act. It said Satan wants to keep us out of the Bible, but we're not going to do that with our education. So you take away what the Bible built in America, you wouldn't recognize us. Then you take somebody like Franklin Roosevelt. He said, we cannot read the history of our rise and development as a nation without reckoning with the place the Bible has occupied in shaping the leading nation. Those that embrace it, they will become very strong nations, or have become strong nations when they embrace it fully. So, and by the way, this fact that I'm stating is not something I've just come up with. This has been stated by presidents for a long time. I mean, I'm just looking here to quote from Teddy Roosevelt. He says this. He says, "The teachings of the Bible are so interwoven and so entwined with our civic and our social life that it would be impossible for us to figure what life would be if these teachings were removed." You take the teachings of the Bible out of our civic and social life, you wouldn't recognize America. Now, people don't know that, but it's pretty easy to point to 5 Bible verses as being the